And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the weekend edition of Australian Indian Radio's live broadcast brought to you by Chentex Multimedia Services. And hey, it's wonderful to have your company on this Anzac Day long weekend. So what are your plans for tomorrow? Of course, must take part in the dawn service and the parade. It is very, very important, and it is very important that we mark that day and not forget about that. So we will bring to you some coverage of all the things that are happening. And of course, we know that the returned soldiers from the Indian contingent will be taking part in the march as well. So it is good to see that there is a cross-section of people taking part, and that the wider community and all coming together to take part in the Anzac Day. And of course, if you're planning barbecues or you're planning getaways, please do exercise care and have fun with the family, but always, make sure that you do so responsibly, because it is very, very important. So there's quite a few things that we need to talk about in this weekend edition. And of course, it's a beautiful weather out there. Dil Raj is not here today with the weather news. But of course, it is looking promising to be a beautiful Queensland weekend. So, if you're joining in from anywhere around the world, welcome. This live stream is coming to you via Brisbane, Australia, and which is a beautiful part of the world. Well, once again, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the show on this 24th day of April, a day before the Anzac Day. Well, right now, looking at some of the news that's been making the headlines is, first of all, we'll join the Queensland Health and our Premier's office to get an update on the situation right here in Queensland. We are ready.
Justice in Queensland has late yesterday afternoon to make a decision to lock down the Perth and Peel regions for 3 days. That means Queensland has made the decision to also ask anyone who has been in Perth or the Peel regions on or from the 17th of April who were in Queensland before midnight last night to test and to quarantine for those 3 days, complying with the same directions as the Western Australia lockdown. So only leaving home for certain reasons, and of course that would be after a negative test, but should be in quarantine for those 3 days. Anyone arriving in Queensland from midnight last night are now required to go into hotel quarantine for up to 14 days. And of course anyone who is not a Queensland resident will be required to have an exemption to arrive in Queensland. There are many flights expected today. I'm still getting the number of flights, but there were flights due to come into Brisbane and Cairns and elsewhere around the state. So that message is important to get out to those people who are looking at travelling, either direct from Western Australia or through other jurisdictions into Queensland and have been in the Perth or Peel region since the 17th of April, that you will be going into hotel quarantine and you will need an exemption if you're not a Queensland resident. I'll ask Dr. Young to just talk about the circumstances surrounding the one new positive case in Queensland today, and of course how these lockdowns occurred. We know that there's been 2 positive cases, one gentleman who was in Perth and then travelled on a flight from Perth to Melbourne, and I understand the Victorian government is now doing contact tracing for people who were on that flight. So we do ask for people to stay alert, anyone who's been travelling from Perth to Melbourne, for the flight details of that flight. Also, if you have been in Melbourne, looking at whether you've been, in Perth or Peel, any of the venues that the Western Australia Health Authorities will be listing on their site where the gentleman had been. So please, if you have been in Western Australia, please check out the sites and the venues to see if you are a close contact and have been at any of those sites. I now ask Dr Young to comment further.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, so we have one new confirmed case diagnosed in Queensland overnight, and that's a seaman on a vessel that travelled from Japan and is now off the coast of Queensland, off the coast of Mackay, and we're just working through with that vessel what happens going forward. So everyone on that vessel has been tested and one person is positive. And we've done that many times before, so we'll do that again. Then we have 2 historic cases that we've identified, and we're just further investigating the circumstances around those 2 cases. Neither of them are shedding virus at this time. They're both PCR negative, so there's no risk there. Then, of course, we have the issue from Western Australia yesterday, that very late notification that they were going into lockdown due to having a case that had been infectious in their community from the 17th of April through to the 21st of April when that person travelled to Melbourne. They have infected one person in the household they were staying with in Perth, and the West Australian Government made the decision to lock down their areas, both the Perth and the Peel regions, for 3 days from midnight Perth time last night while they work out what the ongoing risk is. So therefore we have then, as have most states and territories across Australia, made the decision that the safest way forward is that we decrease movement from Western Australia to other states and territories, so people should not be leaving the Perth or the Peel regions, except for a very few numbers of exemptions. So they shouldn't be coming to Queensland.
Ladies and gentlemen, so they should not be coming to Queensland. Queensland borders are closed to Western Australia right now, and that snap decision with that late announcement which came out of Western Australia late yesterday. And the 3-day lockdown seems to be the norm as soon as 2 or 3 cases are reported. And I think it's a good measure looking at how things are out of control in India at the moment. We learn from those things and see that, okay, if something like this happens, lockdown is there, it might be inconveniencing few people, as it does, but in the broader context, in safety of the wider community, it is very, very important that we adhere to that. So let's hear from Mark McGowan from West Australia and see why and how they implemented this 3-day lockdown.
That's why from midnight tonight, Perth and Peel will enter a 3-day lockdown over the long weekend until midnight on Monday night. I know this is hard to take, and I wish we didn't need to be doing this. But we can't take any chances with the virus. We just can't. From midnight tonight, people will need to stay in the Perth and Peel regions and won't be able to leave unless you have an exemption. There will be 4 reasons to leave your house. These are: work because you can't work from home or remotely; shopping for essentials like groceries, medicine and necessary supplies; medical or healthcare needs, including compassionate requirements and looking after the vulnerable; and exercise with a maximum of 4 people, limited to 1 hour per day, and masks must be worn unless it's vigorous exercise. Masks are mandatory from 6 p.m. tonight and over the 3-day lockdown for Perth and Peel residents, and we recommend they be worn immediately. If you have left Perth and Peel since the 17th of April, you'll be required to wear a mask whenever you are in public across WA. Over the short 3-day lockdown, you must wear a face mask unless you're in home, in your car with people you live with, or doing vigorous exercise. Masks are not necessary for children under 12. The following facilities within the Perth and Peel regions will need to close over the course of the lockdown: pubs, bars and clubs, except for takeaway; gyms and indoor sporting.
So there you are, the lockdown, which is quite similar to our Queensland lockdown, which we had. Of course, now the connection with Melbourne. So let's hear from Melbourne about what happened there.
Western Australian Health recently reported a transmission between 2 rooms at a hotel quarantine facility in Perth. As a result of this known transmission event in Perth, Western Australian Health have determined that other residents on that floor formed primary contacts for COVID purposes. I can advise that this morning at 2 a.m, the Victorian Department of Health received notification of a positive COVID-19 result in one of those recently identified primary close contacts returning from hotel quarantine in Perth. That individual travelled from Perth on a Melbourne flight on Wednesday, April 21st, after completing his 2 weeks in hotel quarantine in Perth, having stayed in the adjacent room which held the positive case in that hotel. On arrival at Melbourne Airport, he was immediately advised by the Western Australian Health authorities of his primary close contact. He was picked up at the airport by his spouse and returned directly home to his residential location in the eastern suburbs, where he lives with 3 household contacts, his spouse and 2 children.
So there's the report coming out of Melbourne as well, and as we know that you can't take chances as the Premier, the Mark McGowan said that you just can't, and it is very, very hard on people, especially in the long weekend, but it is very necessary as he has mentioned. Well, right now we're going to be looking at some other things as well, during this kind of times. Pet care, and what does happen with pet care, and how do we often treat that? So 1/3 of Aussie pet owners are concerned about the nation's return to office because people working from home got so used to having their pets at home, and pets got used to that as well now that people are going back. So despite Australia having one of the highest rates of pet ownership, almost 80% of employers are not pet friendly and don't allow pets in the workplace at all. Should they or shouldn't they? More than half, meaning 51% of the nation, say they are more likely to take a new job with an employer who supports pets in the workplace. Well, of course, the workplace must be suited for that as well. With 80% of Australians supporting a pet-friendly workplace, Mars Pet Care Australia is encouraging Australian businesses to transition towards a pet-friendly workplace. And to talk about this very, very important matter, today I'll be joined by Craig Sargent. Unfortunately, we could not establish a video link, but he is coming via phone, and very soon we'll be welcoming him into the studio via the phone to discuss this topic with us, because we know that there is always a lot of concerns with pets, even be it rental properties and rental houses now talks about, pet-friendly workplaces. Are you for it or you not for it? What are the consequences and what is going to happen? So today, on the line, through, we need to make sure that, our workplaces are work-friendly or not. So right now, let's welcome to the studio to Craig Sargent.
Hi there, it's great to be here.
Okay, yes, thank you so much. We have established that the audio link, and unfortunately that we could not have the video link, but nevertheless, you are there on the phone, and thank you so much for that. So, once this research that has been done by Pet Care Australia, so can you tell us a little bit more about this research findings? So what have the findings been?
2020 has been an extremely disruptive year. And if you think about the impact of that on the workplace, and as offices start to open up, we were curious as to how pet parents would feel coming back into the office. And what we found actually was 30% of Australians in our research are concerned about how returning to the office will impact their pets. And in fact, within that, more than half are worried about the pet being lonely at home if being left home alone. And as pet lovers ourselves, we're just urging employees to think differently about what the workplace of the future could look like and how employees and pets themselves have their needs accommodated.
And that is very important as well, as you have mentioned, Craig. So, with all this happening, what innovations have been created to encourage Australian businesses that can transition towards a pet-friendly workplace?
Well, in terms of innovations for pet-friendly workplaces, we genuinely believe that all offices can be a place not just for the employees, but for their pets as well. And there are just so many options you can take to create a more pet-friendly environment. Just small things like calming plants that help balance the emotions by soothing panic and snappiness. You can have no pet carpet zones for those that would like some dog-free time. And even the amenities you have within the office, like seating pods, can make a big difference.
Well, of course they can, and very well mentioned there, Craig. Well, of course we know that, in all these things, there have been studies that have been done by the universities. So how are university students supporting the transition towards a pet-friendly workplace?
It's just a really exciting initiative that Mars Pet Care has an opportunity to partner with the RMIT University in particular and challenge its students to respond to our vision of how we create Australia's future workplace. And we're really challenging the students at RMIT to respond to our vision of how do we create the future workplace for Australia. Within that, we know that Gen Z are the future of the workforce and we need to consider their needs because our survey found actually that 70% of Gen Z are more likely to take a new job with an employer that supports the needs of pets in their workplace. So this partnership is leveraging some of the brightest minds in Australia, and we're using a hackathon on Entrepreneurship Week to leverage that, and we just can't wait to see their innovations. Okay,
that is very good innovation as well, and of course good on the university students, and congratulations on you and Pet Care Australia, with that collaboration with the RMIT. So that is very, very good. So what pet-friendly innovations has Mars Pet Care implemented in its own office?
The staff of full-time pet sitters, automated dog water bowls at all coffee bars so pets can take part in the latest water cooler chatter, even custom bed storage space throughout the office for those much-needed cat naps. And of course, all of this wouldn't be great without the yummy treats that our furry friends would desire.
Yep. Well, that is, they say charity begins at home. So, if you can do that at your own office, then you can spread that word around. So, Craig, once again, congratulations on the initiative. Congratulations on partnering with RMIT and, of course, for being on the show as well.
No, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That was Craig Sargent from Mars Pet Care, the general manager, and of course for pet nutrition at Mars Pet Care Australia. So that's a new kind of initiative, allowing pets at workplaces and creating a workplace that is pet friendly. So these are signs of times to come. Well, right now, let's take a look at one of our sponsors, GlobeNet Realty.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world, and don't forget that every Wednesday we have the real estate update with Usha Chandra of GlobeNet Realty, providing you in-depth analysis of the market, what's happening throughout, what the property trends are. Well, Anzac Day, what does it mean for us? Let's hear from our treasurer.
Anzac Day is the most solemn day in our national calendar. It's a time to remember, to reflect and to give thanks to those Australian men and women who have defended our country and its freedoms. In particular, Anzac Day calls each of us, every year, to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice in defence of Australia. On Anzac Day, we do not glorify war. Instead, Anzac Day reminds us of the importance of mateship, honour, duty and service. Most of all, Anzac Day reminds us of the precious nature of peace. On the 25th of April 1915, the day we now commemorate as Anzac Day, 16,000 Australians and New Zealanders, many still teenagers, landed on the beaches and desperately tried to climb the cliffs of the Gallipoli Peninsula in Turkey. And the first man ashore that day was a Queenslander, Lieutenant Duncan Chapman, born and bred in the Queensland town of Maryborough. The scenes that played out on that day and in the months that followed will never be forgotten. For some of you, your grandparents and great-grandparents may have stood on foreign battlefields in the service of our country during the First World War and in the many conflicts that followed. Others may have known the suffering and loss that comes from other wars, perhaps civil wars or internal conflicts that may have resulted in your family coming to Queensland to seek the peace and safety that Australia offers to all who call our nation home. Others here today may have a parent or loved one who currently serves in the Australian Defence Force. When the last post rings out today, take a moment to think of all those who have worn the slouch hat or the naval cap, the Air Force hat or the Peacekeeper's beret on behalf of Australia and its people. We are indebted to them for their service to our country. On Anzac Day, we remember them, lest we forget.
And of course, it is so important that we attend the dawn service and the parade. And as I mentioned before, that the Indian soldiers will be taking part in there as well. A little known history about which we will be bringing. I was just speaking to the organizers before this show that they should come on the show here and discuss with us about all the things. So after tomorrow, we'll bring some videos and photos, and we'll do a special segment with Gitika to talk about the Indian soldiers and their involvement. And of course, they will be marching tomorrow as well. Well, Queenslanders proud.
It's amazing for the Premier to become a patron. I remember back in 2015 when she was actually at our grand final that we won. And she's just always been a part of our Purple family. So to have her on board as a patron, it's quite an honour for us.
Yeah, the Purple family means so much. To have the home crowd, home support, everyone's so loud and we just feel so much love when we play there. So everyone in the team, outside the team, our whole community, we just can't wait to be together again.
And that is so good that our Premier has accepted the patronship of that. Well, of course, we're coming on to the weekend, and this being the last weekend of April, we will be hosting our Music Live, which will be Music Junction, which is a live musical show presented here. It is presented in Hindi. It will be on Monday the 26th from 6 p.m. So it will be hosted by RJ Savi, and the artist this month is Janab Rahim Zullah Sahab. He'll be live on air with his special program, Mahfile Ghazal Zahir. So don't miss that wonderful event in a full following on from last month. The theme that's been chosen for this time once again is Ghazal. So going on. So here's a little bit of taste of what you might get to see. So that program on Monday night from 6 p.m. live here, hosted by RJ Sabi. And of course, don't forget that we also have on Tuesday that very wonderful interview with Aarti Bajaj, and of course that is going to be once again a very wonderful event where she talks about so many things, very passionate things, composed and created by listening to the horse's trot and the chug of the farm tractor and train over a wooden bridge. So can you share some experiences of getting any inspiration on, when you were even doing Mira, or what you were embarking upon, that some things, where you got some inspiration from, and that you have converted that idea into or incorporated that into the stage show?
Sure. Thank you for asking this question, Ramesh. There's something very important for me. And to answer this, I'll take myself right back from the age of 8 when I actually started learning Indian classical dance. I come from a background where...
So this interview we will be featuring on Tuesday at 10 a.m. So don't forget, if you want to learn more about what Aarti was talking about and that wonderful conversation that we had, please join us on the Tuesday segment. Well, as I mentioned before, that this is also the year of the 100-year celebration for our Air Force. So we leave you with this clip of the celebrations.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Air Force 100, commemorating the day exactly 1 century ago when the Royal Australian Air Force officially began serving this country. A big part of today's events is the spectacular centenary flypast involving more than 60 aircraft, including historic warbirds, the advanced fighter jet, the F-35A Lightning II, and of course the roulettes. Plus there's the parade on the grounds here at Government House in Canberra, where His Excellency, the Governor-General David Hurley, is officially presenting a new Queen's colour to the Air Force. As you may know, colours are the Defence Force's ceremonial flags or banners, and a new regimental colour is presented only on very special occasions, such as the 100th anniversary of the RAAF. Well, let's meet the woman behind the creation of the new colour, Evangelia Erterk.
My name is Evangelia Erterk, and I've been working as an embroiderer for the past 50 years, mainly with defense. I arrived with my parents in 1970. I came from Greece, and I started working at the Commonwealth of Australia clothing factory. It was like a fountain of knowledge from so many Greeks and Russian ladies working there. It's something that I love doing every day, and I cannot imagine myself retiring, actually. Good morning, ladies. How are you? Oh, this one. In the past 50 years, I have made I would love to see the Queen, simply to say thank you.
What incredible, detailed handiwork and so rich with meaning. And it's great to know that Evangelia will be here today to see her work officially presented. Well, the RAAF's Master of Ceremonies today is Wing Commander Peter Overton. Let's go to him now so he can officially open proceedings by acknowledging the custodians of the land we stand on today.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, welcome to the consecration parade for the Queen's Colour for the Royal Australian Air Force. I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I would like to invite Uncle Michael Bell to perform the Welcome to Country.
Your Excellencies, Chief of Air Force, Chief of Defence Force, Uncle Harry Alley, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to acknowledge my Ngunnawal elders and all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders elders here today. I would also like to acknowledge the ancestries and descendants of all the people represented here today at this gathering and pay my respects to those that have served, those that are still serving, and the families that have supported them to make up the community of the Royal Australian Air Force. Yama. It is my honour to be here today to welcome you to the traditional lands of my people, the Ngunnawal, on this very special occasion of the Queen's Colour Parade for the centenary of the Royal Australian Air Force. As we, the Ngunnawal people, have always known, this has been our traditional lands for as far back as the spoken word can carry. We also know that it will continue to be our traditional lands of my people into the future. In acknowledging that we gather on the traditional lands of the Ngunnawal, the Royal Australian Air Force is paying respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander protocols and history of Australia. I welcome the Royal Australian Air Force, just as they have welcomed our men and women from their inception, both in times of peace and during conflict throughout their history. The Royal Australian Air Force has and continues to honour its commitment to the people of Australia, and in particular to the people of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descent, by welcoming and accepting our men and women into their ranks, from pilots such as Uncle Len Waters and David Valentine Paul DFC, to aircraft women Myrtle Harris and her sister, aircraft woman Ruby Harris, to the men of the Groote Eylandt Airfield Guard, to Warrant Officer Uncle Harry Alley, Elder for the RAF, to Wing Commander Cheryl Neal and Flying Officer Kamara Munro, to RAF Cadet Callan Cabillo Hallier and Officer Cadet Ashlyn Radford. Then, now, always. This commitment was maintained despite the restrictions imposed by policy on Aboriginal enlistment that was in place for an extended period of the Royal Australian Air Force's history. The Royal Australian Air Force, however, chose to offer employment, opportunity and place for our people without prejudice, and continues to do so today, showing leadership with even more urgency, as demonstrated at the welcome ceremony at the Australian War Memorial to commence these celebrations, during which the Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, demonstrated again this commitment, showing the courage, respect and dignity of speaking in my Ngunnawal language. So today it is my honour, on behalf of the Ngunnawal people and in the good graces of my ancestors, to welcome all of you to Ngunnawal country. I also hope that you spend some time enjoying the beauty and attractions of my country, and I also leave you with this guidance. Leave small footprints on my country, but please leave many of them. Once again, welcome, and I hope you enjoy this occasion.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to leave that there, and it is wonderful to see all the protocols being followed, and of course they would. and it is wonderful, the celebration of the 100 years. And of course, we know that there are many people joining us. Well, I'd like to have a special shout out and suprabhat to Anjani Upadhyay, joining us all the way from UP, India. Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's so good to see you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you today. Let's take a very quick look at some of the functions and events taking place. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for in this segment, the weekend edition. And don't forget that on Sunday night, 6 p.m., we have the Music Junction, Janab Rahimullah Sahib this time with Mahfile Ghazal Zahir, and of course hosted by R.J. Savi. And on Tuesday morning, we have Aarti Bajaj, the wild dreamer, coming onto the show and talking about all the things that she has done, and of course her upcoming show, Void. So right now, it's goodbye from me from this segment. Until next segment, enjoy the long weekend. But of course, as I mentioned before in my opening remarks, that please do take care and enjoy and be responsible as well, and always remain vigilant of those rules and regulations that have been put in place. COVID hasn't gone anywhere, it's just around the corner. So we need to be very, very careful. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.